Welcome to Forbidden Desires channel. We hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching. Here I am, Amelia, standing in the dim light of our cozy cottage, the one we've lovingly called home for the past 5 years. The walls are adorned with posters from my favorite plays, each one a testament to the passion that has defined my life. I've always believed in the power of drama, not just on stage but in the very essence of life itself. It's in the way we live, the roles we play, and the emotions we channel into every scene of our existence. My days are spent at the local high school where I teach drama. There's something magical about watching young minds transform raw emotions into compelling performances. It's there, amidst the chaos of rehearsals and the quiet moments of reflection, that I find my purpose. And then there's Jack, my husband, a software engineer with a mind as sharp as the code he writes. He's been my rock, my co-star. In this play we call Life Together, we've crafted a narrative that seemed too perfect to be true. Our beautiful dog Leo, a spirited Siberian husky, adds his own flair to our home. His playful barks and the way he chases his tail bring a lightness to our days. But as I stand here, the silence is heavy, the usual laughter replaced by a palpable tension. The twist in our plot began subtly, like a whisper in the wings, barely noticeable at first. It was during one of our routine evenings, the kind where Jack would come home from work and we'd share stories over dinner. But lately those stories have been less about his day and more about someone else. I remember the first time I noticed something was off. It was a Wednesday, not particularly special, but it marked the beginning of the unraveling. Jack was late, which wasn't unusual given his job, but there was a new scent on him, a fragrance that didn't belong to me. It was subtle, yet it cut through the air like a sharp note in an otherwise harmonious symphony. I tried to dismiss it, chalking it up to a new colleague or perhaps a new brand of cologne. But the signs kept piling up. Late nights turned into unexplained absences, and the warmth in his eyes when he looked at me seemed to dim. The laughter that once filled our home now felt forced, like an actor struggling to remember their lines. I started to observe, to watch for cues, for any indication that my life was not the script I thought I was living. The more I looked, the more I saw there were text messages quickly hidden when I entered the room, phone calls that ended abruptly, and the way he'd sometimes in and out, lost in thoughts that clearly didn't involve me. One evening, as I was setting the table for dinner, I found a receipt in his jacket pocket. It wasn't the amount that caught my eye but the location, a hotel on the other side of town, a place we'd never been together. My heart sank, not just with the betrayal, but with the realization that I had been playing the fool in a drama I didn't even know was being staged. The days that followed were a blur of pain and confusion. I confronted him. Of course, his excuses were as rehearsed as any line from a play, but the truth was in his eyes. In the way he couldn't meet my gaze, he admitted to an affair, a relationship that had been brewing for months right under my nose. The revelation was like a spotlight on the darkest part of our story. Here I was, Amelia, the drama teacher, who had taught countless students about the depth of human emotion, now facing the most profound betrayal in my own life. The script of my life had taken a turn into the bizarre, a plot twist that no one could have anticipated. Now as I stand here, the silence of our home speaks volumes. The laughter has been replaced by the echo of my own footsteps, the occasional bark from Leo, and the heavy weight of my thoughts. I'm left to wonder, was our life ever the picture perfect scene? Or was I just blind to the dark secret lurking in the shadows? This isn't just a story of infidelity. It's a narrative of trust, deception, and the harsh reality that sometimes the roles we play are not of our own choosing. And as I navigate through this unexpected act, I'm left to ponder what will be the next scene in this tragic play. The day started like any other. I was preparing for a school play and Jack was busy with his latest project. Leo, as usual, was underfoot, his tail wagging with excitement for our daily walk. We decided to take a different route, one that led us past a bustling restaurant known for its vibrant nightlife. As we walked, I noticed Jack seemed distracted, his mind elsewhere. I tried to engage him, but his responses were short, his attention clearly divided. feeling a bit neglected. I suggested we stop for a drink at the restaurant, hoping to rekindle our connection. The atmosphere inside was electric, filled with laughter and the clicking of glasses. We found a quiet corner and I ordered us both a glass of wine. I watched Jack as he sipped his drink, his eyes scanning the room, not really seeing me. "You see miles away," I said, trying to pull him back to me. He looked at me, his eyes finally focusing. "Sorry, just a lot on my mind with work," he replied. But his voice lacked conviction. I reached across the table, taking his hand. "Is it just work, Jack, or is there something else?" My voice was gentle, but inside a storm was brewing. He hesitated, then sighed. "Amelia, there's something I need to tell you." My heart skipped a beat here in this public place, surrounded by strangers. I felt the walls of our private life crumbling. "I've been seeing someone else," he confessed, his words slicing through the noise of the restaurant. The world around me seemed to blur, the sounds of laughter turning into a distant echo. I withdrew my hand, feeling the cold air where his warmth had been. "Why?" It was all I could muster, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "I don't know, Amelia. It just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I took a deep breath, trying to study the whirlwind of emotions. "Who is she?" "Her name is Emily. She's from work," he said, his voice now a mix of guilt and resignation. The name felt like a punch to my gut. Emily, a name now etched into the fabric of our life, a character I hadn't anticipated in our story. I stood up, needing space, needing air. "I need to think. Jack, I need to be alone." He nodded, understanding but not following. I left the restaurant, Leo trailing behind me, his tail no longer wagging. We walked back home in silence, the weight of the revelation heavy between us. Once inside our cottage, the silence was deafening. I sat on the couch, Leo resting his head on my lap, offering silent comfort. My mind raced with questions, with scenes of betrayal playing out like a poorly written script. I picked up my phone, my fingers trembling as I typed out a message to my best friend. "Sarah, can we talk? It's urgent." The response was almost immediate. "Of course, Rat, what's wrong?" I stared at the screen, the words forming a lump in my throat. "Jack's been unfaithful. I don't know what to do." The next hour was a blur. Sarah came over, her presence, a small comfort in the chaos. We talked, or rather she listened as I poured out my pain, my confusion, my anger. "You need to decide what you want. Amelia, do you want to try to salvage this? Or is it time to walk away?" Sarah's voice was calm, grounding me in the midst of my storm. I looked around our home, at the posters, at the memories, at the life we had built. Could I really walk away from all this, from Jack, despite his betrayal? "I need time." I finally said. "I need to understand if there's anything left to save." Sarah nodded, understanding. "Take all the time you need, but remember you deserve happiness. Amelia, don't settle for less because of what you've built." As she left, I sat back, the silence enveloping me once more. Leo, sensing my distress, nuzzled closer. I stroked his fur, finding some solace in his loyalty. The night stretched on, and with it, my thoughts turned to the future. What would be the next scene in this tragic play? Would I confront Emily? Would I try to forgive Jack? Or would I take the stage alone, rewriting the script of my life? The answers weren't clear, but one thing was certain. The drama of my life had taken an unexpected turn, and now I was the playwright, the director, and the lead actor in a story I had never intended to write. The evening at the restaurant was pleasant, filled with laughter and the clicking of glasses. However, as the night progressed, Jack received an urgent call from work, pulling him away. He left me with Leo, promising to return soon. Left alone, I decided to take Leo for a short walk in the back alley, a quieter place away from the restaurant's noise. In the dim light of the alley, something strange happened. Leo, usually obedient, became overly excited, his behavior erratic. In a moment of confusion and perhaps influenced by the alcohol, I found myself in a situation that I could never have scripted. I had an intimate encounter with Siaji, an act that was as shocking as it was inexplicable. The aftermath of that night was a blur. I returned to our table, my mind racing, my heart pounding with a mix of guilt, confusion, and a surreal detachment from reality. The restaurant's ambience, once warm and inviting, now felt like a stage set for a drama I was unwillingly starring in. Jack returned, his face flushed with the urgency of his work. Oblivious to the turmoil within me, he sat down, his eyes scanning the room for our waiter, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. "Are you Oka? Amelia? You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, his voice laced with concern. I forced a smile, the act of normalcy feeling like a betrayal to my own emotions, just a bit tired. I lied, my voice barely above a whisper. The rest of the evening passed in a haze. We talked, but my responses were automatic. My mind elsewhere, replaying the bizarre incident in the alley over and over. The drive home was silent. The hum of the car engine, the only sound between us. Leo, now calm, sat in the back, his presence a heavy reminder of what had occurred. Once home, I excused myself to the bathroom, needing space to process the whirlwind of emotions. I looked at my reflection, searching for answers in my own eyes. How could this have happened? What did it mean about me, about us? The next morning I woke up with a headache, not just from the wine but from the weight of my thoughts. Jack was already up, his usual morning routine, filling the house with normalcy, a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. I avoided his gaze at breakfast, focusing instead on the mundane task of battering my toast. "I'm going to take Leo for a longer walk today," I announced, needing to escape the confines of her home to find some semblance of peace. The walk was long and I let Leo lead the way, his leash loose in my hand. We ended up at a park where I sat on a bench watching him play. The normalcy of his joy was a balm, yet the guilt gnawed at me. As I sat there, my phone buzzed. It was Sarah checking it on me. After last night's revelation about Jack's affair, I hesitated, then decided to share my confusion, not about Jack but Abudaji. "Saw something happen last night. It's hard to explain." I texted, my fingers trembling. Her response was immediate. "What is it, Rat? You can tell me anything." I took a deep breath, the words forming slowly. "I had an encounter with Leo. It was unexpected. I'm not sure how to feel or what it means." The silence that followed my confession was palpable even through the digital void. Finally, her reply came, measured and thoughtful. "Amelia, sometimes our emotions and actions can be influenced by extreme situations. It doesn't define you, but you need to talk about this process. Maybe with a therapist." Her suggestion felt like a lifeline. I knew she was right. This wasn't something I could navigate alone. The complexity of my feelings, the betrayal by Jack, and now this bizarre incident with Leo. It was all too much to handle without help. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, the routine of teaching drama at school providing a temporary escape. But every moment alone was filled with introspection, questioning my sanity, my fidelity, my very identity. That evening, after Jack had gone to bed, I sat in the living room, the dim light casting long shadows across the room. I opened my laptop, searching for therapists who specialized in complex emotional issues. The act felt like a confession, an acknowledgement that my life had veered into a narrative I couldn't control. As I scrolled through profiles, my thoughts drifted to Jack, his betrayal, his affair with Emily. It was a plot twist I hadn't anticipated. And now here I was dealing with my own unexpected act. One that felt like a mirror to his infidelity, yet so profoundly different. The next day I made an appointment. The therapist, Dr. Helen Olivia, had a kind face and a reputation for handling cases of emotional turmoil. I felt a mix of relief and dread as I scheduled the session. In the days that followed, I avoided being alone with Sign, the guilt of our encounter lingering like a shadow. I focused on my students, pouring my energy into their performances, finding solace in their youthful enthusiasm and the simplicity of their dramas. But the night before my therapy session, I lay awake, the silence of the house amplifying my thoughts. I turned to Jack, his back to me, his breathing steady in sleep. I whispered into the darkness, "What have we become?" Question hung unanswered, a silent echo in our shared space. I knew then that the next scene in our life's play was about to unfold, one where I would seek not just understanding but perhaps forgiveness for both of us. The next morning, the weight of my actions bore down on me. I couldn't look at Jack or Leo without feeling a surge of guilt and confusion. I tried to act normal, but my mind was racing. How could I have let this happen? Was it the alcohol, the loneliness, or something deeper within me that I hadn't acknowledged? Jack, oblivious to my inner turmoil, was his usual self, discussing his work and our plans for the weekend. Each word he spoke felt like a knife, reminding me of my betrayal. I needed to confess, but the words wouldn't form. Instead, I withdrew, claiming a headache, and spent the day in bed wrestling with my conscience. As the day turned into evening, the silence in our home was palpable. I could hear Jack moving about, the clink of dishes as he prepared dinner, the soft patting of Leo's paws on the hardwood floor. Every sound seemed to echo my guilt back to me. I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together how I had ended up in this surreal nightmare. The thought of therapy loomed large in my mind. Dr. Helen Olivia's face, kind yet professional, appeared in my thoughts. I knew I needed to talk to someone to unravel the mess inside my head. But first I had to confront Jack. The truth was a heavy burden, and I couldn't carry it alone any longer. I finally mustered the courage to get out of bed, my body feeling like it was made of lead. I found Jack in the kitchen, setting the table for dinner. He looked up. Concern etched on his face. "Amelia, you've been in bed all day. Are you feeling any better?" he asked, his voice laced with worry. I shook my head, the lump of my throat making it hard to speak. "Jack, we need to talk." I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. He paused, the fork he was holding hovering midair. "What's wrong?" His tone shifted, sensing the gravity of my words. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I did something last night, something I can't explain or justify." My eyes avoided his, focusing instead on the grain of the wooden table. Jack set the fork down, his full attention now on me. "What happened?" "Amelia." I recounted the evening at the restaurant, how he had left for work, and how I had taken Leo for a walk in the alley. My voice trembled as I described the bizarre, almost otherworldly encounter. I was confused, overwhelmed. It was like I was myself. I said the words, tasting bitter as they left my lips. Jack's face went through a spectrum of emotions: confusion, shock, then a deep, pained understanding. "Amelia, I don't know what to say. This is unexpected." "I know," I whispered, tears now streaming down my face. "I'm so sorry. Jack, I'm not sure what it means about me, about us." He reached across the table, taking my hand. His touch was gentle, but I could feel the tension in his grip. "We've both made mistakes. Amelia, I've hurt you deeply with Emily. Maybe this is, I don't know, a reflection of our pain." His attempt at understanding only made me feel worse. "I need help. Jack, I've made an appointment with a therapist. I think I need to understand why this happened, why I let it happen." He nodded, his eyes reflecting his own turmoil. "I'll support you, Amelia, whatever you need, but we also need to talk about us, about where we go from here." Conversations stretched into the night, a mix of confessions, tears, and tentative steps towards understanding. We discussed boundaries, trust, and the future of our relationship. The air was thick with the weight of our confessions, but there was also a sense of relief in the honesty as we sat there. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't the heavy, oppressive silence of secrets, but a contemplative pause, a space where healing might begin. The next morning I woke up with a clearer mind, though the path ahead was still uncertain. I prepared for my therapy session knowing that the journey to understanding myself would be long and fraught with challenges. But for the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope not just for myself but for us. I left Jack at home, his gaze following me with a mixture of concern and something akin to resolve. As I walked out, Leo didn't follow. Instead, he stayed by Jack's side, his loyalty now a poignant reminder of the complexities of our lives. Driving to Dr. Olivia's office, I rehearsed what I would say, how I would explain the inexplicable. The drive was quiet, the only sound the hum of the engine and my own breathing steady and deliberate. Upon arriving, I was greeted by the calm, professional atmosphere of the therapist's office. Dr. Olivia welcomed me with a warm smile, her office a sanctuary from the storm of my life. "Amelia, please have a seat," she said, gesturing to a comfortable chair. I sat down feeling the weight of my confession, pressing against my C*******T. "Thank you for seeing me, Dr. Olivia. I'm here because I've done something that I can't understand, something that feels like it's tearing my life apart." She listened intently as I recounted the events, her expression one of empathy and professional curiosity. "Amelia, it's important to explore these feelings to understand not just the actions but the emotions and circumstances that led to them." The session was a blur of emotions, revelations, and the beginning of a therapeutic journey. Dr. His head moving back and forth as if following our conversation. "I've been doing a lot of thinking too, Jack," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I've been through therapy. I've confronted Emily. I've looked at myself in ways I never thought I would have to, and I've realized something." He weighted his eyes searching mine. "I need to find myself again to understand who I am outside of us. I need to heal not just from your betrayal but from my own actions, my own confusion." Jack's face fell, but he nodded, understanding the gravity of my words. "I'm not saying no to us, Jack, but I am saying not now. I need time to grow, to heal, and if after that there's still us to rebuild, then maybe we can try." He reached out his hand, hesitating before touching mine. "I'll wait. Amelia, I'll do whatever it takes." We sat there, the silence now a bridge rather than a chasm. I knew the path ahead was uncertain, filled with potential pain and growth. But for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was in control of my own script, ready to write the next act of my life, whether it included Jack or not. Question remained: could Amelia salvage her marriage after such a profound betrayal? Only time and the choices I would make would tell. But one thing was clear: the drama of my life was far from over, and I was ready to face whatever scene came next. In the days that followed, Jack and I barely spoke. He moved out, taking only his essentials, leaving behind a life we had built together. I was left to navigate the ruins of my choices. Therapy became my refuge, a place where I could unpack the layers of my psyche, trying to understand why I had crossed such an unthinkable line. Leo, ever loyal, remained by my side, a constant reminder of my lapse in judgment. I began to volunteer at an animal shelter, seeking redemption through acts of kindness. Over time, I learned to forgive myself, though the scar of that night would always remain. My story, once a tale of love and laughter, had morphed into one of loss, guilt, and eventual self-discovery. Life, indeed, had taken a turn into the bizarre. But from the ashes of my past, I was slowly rebuilding, not just my life but my understanding of myself. What lessons did Amelia learn from her darkest moment, and how did it shape her future? The lessons I learned were profound and multifaceted. The first was the fragility of trust. I had always believed in the strength of our bond, but Jack's betrayal showed me how quickly trust could be shattered. It wasn't just about his infidelity. It was about the realization that the foundation of our relationship was not as solid as I had thought. This taught me to be more cautious, to not take loyalty for granted, and to understand that trust must be continuously nurtured. Secondly, I learned about the complexity of human emotions. My own actions with Sig, driven by a cocktail of confusion, loneliness, and perhaps a subconscious desire to hurt Jack as he had hurt me, were a stark reminder that emotions can lead us down paths we never intended to travel. This incident forced me to confront parts of myself I had never acknowledged, parts that were capable of acting out in ways that were out of character. Through therapy, I began to understand the depth of my own emotional turmoil and the need for self-awareness and control. Forgiveness, both of others and myself, was another lesson. Forgiving Jack was a journey, one that I wasn't sure I could complete. But forgiving myself was perhaps even harder. I had to learn that making mistakes, even grave ones, doesn't define who I am, but how I respond to them does. Dr. Olivia helped me see that self-forgiveness is not about excusing my actions, but about understanding them, learning from them, and moving forward with that knowledge. The act of volunteering at the animal shelter was therapeutic in its own right. It wasn't just about giving back. It was about reconnecting with a part of me that still believed in kindness, in second chances, and in the healing power of compassion. Each animal I helped was a step towards healing myself, a reminder that life could still be about love and care. Even after profound loss, my relationship with Jack became a question mark, a narrative, left open-ended. We spoke occasionally. Our conversations filled with that tentative hope and a shared understanding of the pain we had caused each other. I wasn't ready to close the door on us, but I also knew that any future together would require a new script, one where both of us would have to play roles we were still learning. The most significant change was within myself. I was no longer just Amelia, the drama teacher, or Jack's wife. I was becoming someone who understood the depth of human complexity, someone who could navigate through the darkest of plots with a newfound resilience. My identity was evolving, shaped by the trials I had faced, making me more empathetic, more introspective, and ultimately more whole. As I continued my therapy, I realized that the story of my life was not just about the roles others played, but about the character I chose to be. I was learning to write my own script, one where I was not just a victim of circumstances, but a protagonist with agency, capable of growth and change. This journey of self-discovery was not linear. There were days when the weight of my past actions and the betrayal I had endured felt overwhelming. But with each session, each volunteer hour, and each moment of solitude, I was piecing together a new understanding of myself. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while I felt equipped to face it. Whether Jack would be part of that future was still an open question, but I knew that my path forward would be one of self-respect, understanding, and an unwavering commitment to my own well-being. In the quiet moments when the house was still and Leo's soft breathing was the only sound I would reflect on the lessons learned, I understood now that life's drama was not just about the roles we play, but about how we evolve through them, how we learn to direct our own lives, and how even in the darkest scenes there can be a light of self-discovery and growth. My story ends here. If you feel that this story is meaningful and brings useful lessons, please like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next videos.